Welcome to the Reimagine podcast, where we are reimagining healing, art, and life itself with Claire Sangster of CS Therapies and Deborah Epstein of the Cosmic Dreaming Lodge. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Reimagine podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about dopamine hits, rushes, somatic therapy or somatics, and what was the other thing that we were going to talk about?
Or nervous system regulation.
Nervous system regulation. And right off the bat, when we were talking earlier, I said something about somatics, and right away you had something to say about it. So tell us about somatics and what you think about that.
I would if I knew what it was. I think that it's interesting the amount of things going around where I don't really know what it means. So somatic is one of those words. In my experience of the word somatic, soma just means body. So therefore somatic is anything related to the body, which I find really interesting with the word psychosomatic, because if you break that down, literally that just means mind-body connection. It means it would be caused by both, whereas we've been sold this idea that psychosomatic means something doesn't exist. And I'm like, well, actually, if you think about that word in the meaning of the word, it means it exists in both spheres.
Yeah, and from my background with like Vedic astrology and stuff, there's a nakshatra that is all about soma. It's like the symbol of it is a pot of soma, which is healing. So if you think about it, soma like healing, it sounds actually pretty good, right? Like a balm or something soothing or something that opens something up and, creates health.
Yeah, it's a nice word. But
somatics.
I think my query is always, is somatic healing just mean something that involves the body as well as the spirit and the mind, or is somatics a specific modality? Like myofascial release I'd view as like a modality or a set of principles. I don't like the word technique, so I'm not going to use that, but it's a thing whereas the fascia and the fascial system refers to what we may or may not be working with when we do myofascial release. So I genuinely half the time don't know if somatics just means any form of body work or anything that is involving how the body may be taken. So, for example, I know that some somatic experiencing is specifically a modality, but is the buzzword of somatic, could I say I do somatic work because I'm a myofascial release therapist?
Possibly. Yeah, it's broad. It certainly does. It broadens the term and then adds a lot of confusion in. Yeah. And that's actually what I'd love to kind of achieve with this episode, is to kind of clear up the misinformation or confusion around the words that we use. And what started it out for me was actually today. We knew we were going to be doing this recording, but we weren't really sure what we were going to be talking about, but it was going to be around healing or art or life, because that's what we're reimagining around here. And, I was listening to a podcast on Substack where two pretty influential people were talking about dopamine hits and, going after the dopamine hits, when on notes and getting likes and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that's not really doesn't sound like someone's chasing dopamine to me for, in that instance. It seems more like an existential issue to me, because I want validation, I'm putting something out there and I'm checking to see, if people are liking it, if people are seeing me, if people are getting me, and that seems to me more existential and maybe coming from more of a lack or an adrenaline rush, if we're going to stay with chemicals. But when I mentioned it to you, your response is really interesting to me, because you're like, well, it's a little reductionist going just to a certain chemical, right? When there's a whole system. Yeah.
Yeah. I think anything that breaks it down to one aspect is missing the whole. And it's like, we are greater than the sum of our parts. Is that, I can't remember who that quote is from. I think many people say it because it's true. And I think it's interesting, even, I mean, that particular example of people going after likes for a dopamine hit. There's a thing in neuroscience that would say story follows state. So depending on what nervous system state you were in would depend what your response to getting likes was. So if you were in a perfectly regulated, connected state, one, you probably wouldn't care because you are getting your sense of self from yourself. So it wouldn't be dependent on an external approval. But you'd be more likely to just be like, oh, that's really cool. I feel really connected with all these people who are connecting with my work. If you're in a activated fight flight state, the sympathetic nervous system's going, you're probably just going to be critical of why isn't it more likes? Like the story that you tell yourself about. So if I got 27 likes, it's not very many. If I got 27 likes and I'm connected, I'm just not going to care because I'm like, I didn't put content out there for that reason. I put content out there to serve. I put content out there to maybe connect, but it's how I feel about my content is not dependent on the response. So you fall foul of things like algorithms. It's got nothing to do with the quality of the content, whether necessarily the number of responses you get. Whereas if I'm in an activated sympathetic nervous system state, I'm going to just be critical, irrelevant. 27 likes, then everyone hates me. They probably only did it because they feel sorry for me. I don't even know why I put it out because my work's terrible. Like, it's just the story that I tell about exactly the same response will vary. And if I'm in the collapsed state, I'm using the polyvagal model, but if I'm in the collapsed freeze state, I'm not even going to, one, I probably wouldn't have put content out to start with because it's quite hard to do anything from that state. But the most likely state, you're probably going to have done that from seeking approval, potentially is activated because you're seeking something. You want to keep the adrenaline going because the survival would be dependent on, or your brain is in a state where the idea of survival is dependent on something coming in to keep you in that survival state, because you're probably running out of energy, because in theory that state burns out because it's hard to maintain, hence why we're all exhausted all the time. Whereas, as I say, if I'm in a truly connected, ventral vagal centered, calm space, again, I'm just going to put stuff out because I enjoy putting stuff out. I'm not going to really be bothered. In the same way, I'm not dependent on the response for my dopamine.
Yeah, it's interesting how you're framing this too. And I gave you permission to share, so you can share that chart in a minute. But what it was making me think of is, of course, I'm thinking from my own past, and how I was, spent that time building an online business that started in COVID and all of the marketing stuff that they teach you how to do. And it created burnout for me because what I'm seeing is I'm relying upon how much content, data, connection I can make for my own survival, which is getting clients basically, right, to work with, instead of seeing that like, okay, I created a community, right? And that everything is community and I'm part of this community and I have something to offer. Right. And so it's what's driving the burnout really is that desire for connection, but then you're not getting connection because you're driving from like survival in that old pattern of this and that. And the other thing I was thinking of too is when we work on our nervous system and like our wiring, so to speak, that there's an energy to that. And what I've been working towards in the last year or so is really getting back to working more with the energetic field as my body relates to it, and coming back to what I knew how to do before I forgot it in this other learning, this more mechanical approach, was that everything was attraction. I was in the right state of flow. So my body was, we do have that, flow within us, right? Which you're going to talk about with the different states, nervous system states, if I'm saying that right. But that also puts energy out into a field. And because we forget that we're more than just wiring and more than just physical, there's we're more energy than matter. And so that affects how we connect etherically and how things flow to us, but how we're also flowing out. You know, it's like a big ocean, you know, is how I'm picturing it. So,
yeah, I think it's, you touched on two things there actually, which are reflected in bodywork, which is the old biomechanical model versus the newer biotentegral model, which so biomechanics would have us think that we break down from use, that we are mechanical, that there's broken parts that need replacing. Whereas a biotentegral model says we actually get stronger though if we use our bodies, that we flow, that we are made of a relationship between tension and compression, which is what gives us form. So there's a lot of different tensegrities within any system. So we are a complex adaptive system. Neil Thesis' work is fabulous around that, as well as some other people's.
Yeah. Can you just state the name of that book? Do you remember it? Is it
The Theory of Complexity? So the Theory of Complexity.
Yes.
I read it in about a day. It's a really good book. I mean, I wouldn't recommend reading it in a day necessarily, but it was a really good book.
Yeah. It blends spirituality with science too, I think, pretty successfully.
The presentation I saw him give was stunning because he did it in sections where it dropped you down through the levels. And I was like, this is so clever. It was so well put. Like this room of sciencey people and just put them down into a really deep state of meditation, basically, without them even realizing that's what he was doing. But he was using it as an experiential of this complex adaptive system idea of, so if we adapt to whatever we do the most. So that ties back in with nervous systems, I would think, in that if we're constant, so using your example with that pressure to create content for a reason, as in for an outcome, you're going to have to keep putting yourself in that activated state because you're trying to do something. It's an action activated. Therefore, you're going to train yourself to be in that state, which is what happens to most of us because we live in a very, very fast society in the West where it's like production. It's not based on cycles. It's not based on flow. It's based on productivity and outcome and linear. I was saying to someone this week of like, we're expected to produce the same amount every day, day in, day out, full stop. Doesn't matter what you're doing or what's going on. That just is how it is. And with the nervous system state, so I think we'll probably put some resources about polyvagal theory in the show notes. But for anyone who's not familiar, it's a very, very oversimplified model of the nervous system that people can sort of relate to. So you've got 3 states.
Do you want to show your graphic while you're talking about that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There we go. So this is not mine.
Yeah.
The copyright is at the bottom there. So in this model, the polyvagal model, we have the social engagement state, which is the state everybody who's going on about dopamine hits is probably thinking is the optimal state. So it's the state where we're curious, where we're calm, where we're connected, where we feel settled, where we feel grounded, where we may feel more mindful and in the present. And there's a lot of positive in inverted commas, because there's pros and cons to everything, aren't they? Nothing in the body or in life is good or bad entirely. Bodily things, but it decreases defensive responses. So again, if there is a saber-toothed tiger coming at me, I probably don't want to be in a ventral vagal state. Just because then I'm going to be, what a lovely tiger, and then it'll not necessarily great.
It's not saying, oh, what a lovely human.
No, it's saying, ooh, look, it's staying so still and opening its arms up to me, which exposes all its major organs. Yay. So then you have something called neuroception, which is basically we have a radar going constantly within our systems that is scanning the environment that we're in for cues of danger and cues of safety. If the cues of danger are louder than the cues of safety, 1, you're far more likely to experience pain. And 2, you may trip the line and you may get activated. So you're going to go into this sympathetic hyperarousal, the fight flight state, movement towards, movement away, which are the two states. And the big way to recognize this is if you are in activated, the story that you tell, so your mental narrative, if you're a thinking in words person, is probably going to be along the lines of criticism, frustration, anxiety, worry and concern, fear, anger. Like you're not going to, it would be the classical road rage response where your immediate response is everybody's in my way and they're all awful. Rather than if I hit traffic and I'm in social engagement, I'm going to be like, well, whoever's causing the traffic, their day is probably a lot worse than mine, and I really hope everyone's okay. But there's a real difference in that response.
And that kind of loops back to what we were talking with Julie when she was on the show last month.
So if you haven't listened to that one, listen to that one because there's some good stuff in that. And then you've got the third state, which so here it's described as I can. So in the sympathetic state, you're activated, so you're in action mode. You're going to do something, you just don't know what it is. And if that doesn't work, then you've got the collapse. So dorsivagel hypoarousal, so everything starts to slow down, disassociation, depression, shutdown, hopelessness. The interesting thing with this is that you can be in collapse and still be walking around and functioning. You're not necessarily going to be a possum playing dead. So this would be experienced more as you feel really disconnected. It's a bit like watching yourself do life, but your energetic body is over here somewhere. And this is a really cool survival mechanism, but not long term.
Yeah, it's interesting because I just had a hit. So we were talking about this a little earlier, and I said, I had someone like that recently come in that, her energetically, it felt like a veneer. But in MFR speak, we would have called that she's out of body. And it's really interesting because I've been, people I've been working with, I work with a lot of therapists here, and we're really getting tired of being accused of being out of our body. And I've talked about that too, right?
My most hated friends.
The way I look at it is we can't really be out of body. I mean, there's fragmentation, but and it's just on the language. So it's not literal. We have to start looking at language around this as more symbolic because we don't have the language for what's really happening. Yeah. But I feel like what you just shared is that we're walking around in a state of shutdown. So it's a state of disconnect because we're in a state of not just fight or flight. We're still running a trauma under the radar.
So the interesting thing with that, right? If you had a traumatized child or a traumatized animal and you could see that they were in disconnect, do you think going, get back in your body?
Well, that little bird I saw running into the window the other day. Yeah, that's, it runs its course, right? Animals know how to do this.
Actually, the more connected way of doing this. So my system well, like I'm usually 90% out and 10% here, but that doesn't even make sense. But I seem to be able to traverse a massive span of something. We don't know what it is. We never have done. But so if I had someone who was out, as the therapist, I'd go meet them out. I wouldn't ask them to come in, but I would keep some of me here so that I'm like, this is the way. I always think of like, the old movies where they would explore cave systems and they'd leave a trail of lights or whatever. There'd be some way back. And I'm like, my job, if I am in the role of facilitator, is to go, you've done an amazing job of protecting yourself out there. And I can come meet you and then we'll have a chat in whatever way, whether that's through energy work, body work, whatever, spirit, I don't know what words people want to use. And then if you want to try coming back with me, it's safe, or like we can see how safe it feels. Yeah. Because my role is to model it in a way and go, I know what that's like and I can reach you there. But if you don't want to come back, not going to make you because you have made a choice to keep yourself safe, and until you feel safe enough, you're not going to want to come back. So me telling you get back in your body, for me it pushes me even further out because it's like someone going F you. And in reality there's no in or out. It's
it's where our life force energy is kind of hanging out. So, and where our awareness is, so when I'm in that situation, what I expand out to, I don't say I go out to meet them. I go out, I form a bubble. Yeah. And sometimes that bubble has to get really big. So it's like this big expansion. But I think what's happening too is I'm energetically expanding with them. So they're already there. So it's just kind of hitching a ride on them. And it's really interesting because, I always ask questions. And so this one person I had on my table, like, it wasn't that I didn't feel she wasn't present. She was present, but she also, she felt very expanded to me. She felt very big. So I just was asking her, well, like, where are you? Like, what are you aware of? And she was saying like, well, it feels pretty far out. And then I'm like, as far out as the mountains over there. Now, from my house, I'm in Sedona, we have a view of a beautiful mountain range. And it's probably a good 10 miles from, it looks closer than what it actually is. It's everything it's hard to just judge the distance, but it's probably about that. She felt she was there as well. Yeah. And when I asked her to go back, she went back as far as she could and up as high. And so I just allowed her to play with her space. Yeah. And it was eye-opening for both of us. So it's like, I never really know. I don't like coming from a place where I think I know everything. And the only thing I do know how to do is to get out of that thought and then be in the curiosity of what is happening in the moment with this person. So in order to teach someone a technique, it has to create a limit around things. And it does bring things into a mechanical arena where it is both. We are both mechanical, if you will, like gross anatomy, like matter sort of stuff, and how we move, how we've all agreed things are put together. But then at the same time, we're way more vast. And, quantum physicists talk about 99.9% of us, is 99. It's a lot of nines, right? 99.9999999. Yeah. Is all energy. So you're less than 1% matter, but that's the thing that matters most, right?
Maybe.
In this world, not the one, not the one we're reimagining here.
Right. Though I think the reimagining is interesting in itself, because there's when you go biomechanical versus biotentegral, there's an awesome video on YouTube of a salamander forming itself in the round, and how it so the biotensegrity teachers love to talk about how no one went into your mother's womb and put you together and glued all your parts on. Like, you did it. You self-organized, self-created, and self-assembled.
I love that.
In the round, so not in the linear, in space, for want of a better, via forces and the other things that play. And it's like, and that it's an interesting thing to sit with, to go, I self-assembled. It's self-organized. No one came to me.
Go ahead. That and the whole idea, it kind of backed up the whole idea that I've been hearing a lot lately, is that it's not your soul that's in your body, it's your body that's in your soul. So when you think of even how you self-organize and think about yourself as a soul self-organizing matter into form, it lands better.
Yeah. And I think that it's, again, there's lots of things coming in at once around this whole out and in body thing of really, we're all part of a field, right? Whether you, whatever word you want to choose for it, the field works pretty well. If we're all connected, what is connecting me in the UK right now to you in Sedona is the space between us. And it's we can either see that as separation or as connection, or if it was in you and me language, it would be the and, wouldn't it? Of what separates and connects us right now is the space between us. And it's I don't know how many thousands of miles that is, but it doesn't feel like we're very far away. And so So how much of it is all down to perception anyway? And that perception, if I was feeling really activated or really separated, then it would be really easy for me to focus on the fact that you're however many thousands of miles away. Whereas if I'm in my regulated or, the fun part of being maybe activated, because you can have mixed states as well. You're not necessarily just in one. And then I'm going to be much more focused on, wow, how amazing is it that I can feel so connected via the space, via the field, and that field can warp so that it's not dependent on linear measurements. And it's, and how does this connect in with dopamine, somatics, and nervous system regulation? Well, you think a lot of nervous system regulation, it's bigger than any of those individual parts, because it is about actually the simple breakdown is safety versus danger. And it's like, okay, how do we, and what you really want for a healthy nervous system is to be able to flow between the states. Like, I always use the example of, I never run, so I don't know why I use this example, but if I was going to run a sprint, I'm not going to get very far from a regulated state. I would want to be activated and want to hype myself. You see the good sprint runners, they are jumping up and down and they are getting themselves hyped up to run because you want a quick burst of energy. And again, if there's advantages to the checked out state as well. If I've been hit by a car, I do not want to be in my body. Knock me out. Like, my energetic self is going to be clever enough to take me out of the picture. In theory, within a minute, come back in, but that's the bit that sometimes gets stuck, and that's what many modalities will mean. That's actually where what I know of as somatic processing will come in.
You're reading my mind.
This is where real, I don't know much about it. I'm not going to claim to, but where somatic processing would come in would be like, notice what your body is doing when you tell this story. Let's see where it's like MFR with myofascial release would do it in the different way of being like, right, we're in the body, let the body tell the story. One would be seen as more top down and one would be seen as bottom up. Though really they both work very much in their own way. It depends on the therapist.
And depends on what the person needs too, because it's like, it's being able to be flexible and kind of like allow yourself not to have to be in the rule or bound by a technique, because you're talking about, basically, we're talking about a multifaceted, multidimensional system, or system upon systems, but also getting over the fact that it's non-linear. And then when we learn, we have to learn in a linear form. But then the art of healing comes in is when we can learn to let go of the linear. It's yes and again, because we need the linear. And then it's also the expanded or reimagining into the nonlinear and allowing it to be what it is. And with your training as a therapist, it is being flexible with what comes up and being curious, but you can't do that if you're stuck in rules and if you're stuck in this is how you can do it.
No, because then you just get frustrated that people aren't doing what you think they should be doing.
Yeah.
So then you get into an activated state, even if you didn't start there, because you're like, the person isn't behaving how the book says they should. They didn't do it in the right way.
Yeah. Or the therapist goes to, I did something wrong, right? Not me, but they themselves did something wrong. They didn't do something right. Yeah. There's too much pressure. Yeah.
And circling back to one of the things you touched on earlier about, it made me think of lack and abundance as well. Of like, I think, so when you were talking about how when you were working more in the marketing model and the online model, it basically sounds like you were being taught to power from a place of lack. I don't know if that's accurate, but like there's not enough. You go win all the things.
Yeah. It definitely, it uses lack against, the person too, is they teach you to press on the pain point, right? And as a healer, that's like, okay, well, if I'm going to go into the pain, it's to help them get out of the pain, not to keep the pressure on so that they buy from you because they're in that much pain, right? So it's so I want to say counterintuitive, but it so goes against everything that I that I believed in. So I never did well with it because I'm like, I'm not going to inflict pain on somebody or, use time compression or fear based stuff. I mean, you want to let people know, like, here's the deadline, but you don't want to like have them running from the tiger to sign up to your program. Right.
If we were going to reimagine that kind of thing from the place of abundance, is then one, the motivation matters, because it's like, if I believe in a model of abundance, I believe there is enough for everyone and more. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I'm not coming with fear. Therefore, immediately I'm coming more from a sense of safety. So my nervous system is likely to not need as much help to regulate itself. Yeah. And then it's interesting thinking of it that way, of like, how can we reimagine, if we take those three things we started with, how would we reimagine somatics, nervous system regulation, and dopamine hits? And it's like, wow, from a place of abundance and from a place of holism, of as in whole being rather than separated. And I don't know, things to say on abundance.
Yeah. Well, yeah, what I was going to say is, the model that we've been living under probably since Darwin is survival of the fittest. And that is a lack model in and of itself, because that means there's only one or a few things of something. And we're all living in that paradigm right now where competition and only the fittest get the reward, the meat, the dinner, the whatever you want to call it, reward in this case is money. And you look at how our systems are set up with, the wealthiest is the top of the pyramid, and the majority of us are down here fighting over scraps because that's our belief system culturally playing itself out to this creation. So if we were going to reimagine from a place of abundance, it is being in nature and allowing nature to be your teacher, and show you we do live in an abundant universe, that there's more to abundance than just finances, money, and survival needs. It's, there's an abundance of joy. There's an abundance of light. There's abundance of, air and earth and stars and galaxies. And I mean, if you're and other things that are more etheric in nature, instead of, I'm not enough or it's not enough and it's never enough. It's like, what a shame to be, in a place where so let's go back to the social media model. Someone took the time to heart something that you put out there, and you're coming from lack, and you're dishonoring the person that is honoring you.
Mm. Yeah. So really it's almost zooming out, isn't it? And being like, okay, let's look at the yes and let's look at the facts of lack. Yes, I think there's definitely a tendency of demonizing the supposed negative states, whether that be nervous system, whether that be emotions, whether that be pain itself. I just came off teaching a whole workshop about pain, and a lot of that was about what pain's purpose is, in that it's to protect the body. I'm not going to go into pain science right now, but yeah, there is nothing. Pain is not there to hurt us, which obviously sounds completely ridiculous, seeing as pain hurts, but is what it is. And I think there's definitely, we really like to either or stuff and to put something in a box, and it's usually a good box and a bad box. And so in nervous system theory, it would be that the only good box is if you're in a regulated state, and that either of the other states are negative or bad. With emotions, we only want the light ones, but even then we don't want too much, because if anyone's too excitable, we medicate them as well. And if anyone's got too much joy, we think there's probably something wrong with them. So basically you're allowed this tiny little not spectrum. There's no spectrum of emotion allowed. You are allowed these
right. Very black and white, right?
Yeah, and it also can be gender biased as well. So it depends on how you identify which emotions you are or aren't allowed. There was a friend of mine did a good thing about how women aren't allowed to be angry recently, and it's like, yeah, women are allowed to cry and be hysterical, even though they'll still historically get thrown in a mental health unit for it, but they're definitely not allowed to be angry, because then it would be like, whoa, what is that?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think, and again, so basically you're saying women are only allowed to be in either a regulated, well, actually, no, women are expected to be activated because they're meant to do everything without looking like they've done it.
Yes. I'm
Which
thinking
is,
of some American commercials around bringing home the bacon, frying it up in the pan, and never,
yeah,
never looked disheveled.
yeah,
But,
it's
it's
really
interesting
cool,
as you're
isn't it?
talking and thinking about like passive aggression, how it's such a big deal. That's how
Mm,
women get angry, is passively aggressive.
yeah.
And you're supposed to be able to pick up these signals. I remember growing up with that, and my mom still kind of does the passive aggressive thing. That actually makes me aggressive. I get really angry.
I think that doesn't sound that responsive most people because again, the energy, it doesn't matter how the word passive is irrelevant, really, isn't it? Because it's actually, if you have any form of sensitivity, you know damn well that person is being aggressive with a smile. Which then, if you have a nerve, so if you think about that in the terms of neuroception, the signals then are incredibly confusing to the normal person or especially sensitive people because
Yeah,
it's like, hang on a minute, like you're smiling at me and yet you are ripping me to shreds. And therefore, my neuroception cannot make sense
yeah,
of what you mean. So
yeah,
then it leaves my nervous system in a state of absolute confusion because it's like what are they like energetically? I'd say they're being angry, but their face is meant to say smile.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like that's you're just like telling me about my own childhood. Yes, that's it. Exactly. It's exactly how I grew up. It's like, wait a minute,
But
none of
then
this
we learn.
energy is
So
matching what you guys are doing.
then we learn to be in that, generally speaking, would probably drive either an activated state if you were in getting into the fight or that checkout state because you just go into, I can't connect with that, so I'm not going to be able to find, there's no thread of connection there unless I meet the fight, and you do get some energy back in a fight, so there's a reward to a point, to a degree, in a fight.
Yeah,
Or you'd go into dorsal vagal because it's like, well, it's safer to not be here because I can't make it make sense, which is probably
yeah.
where I spend most of mine. It's like,
I would have to agree. I mean, for me, like invisibility was that double-edged, gift, and it was a gift and it was a curse because like I was very good at like blending into the walls so
yeah,
not to get further injury. But then at the same
yeah,
time, they'd forget to pick me up places. So
yeah. I have someone I've talking about this theme a lot of like, I desperately want you to see me, but don't look at me.
yeah, I mean, and so when we go back to now energetics and being
Yeah,
online and stuff, and you have this drive, maybe not to be seen, but I want to be seen as a healer so I can help people because, I love what I do. I love helping people. I just want to help people connect with each other, but I'm scared to death of being seen. And so that's a whole area of work that we get to do on ourselves too.
yeah. And
That
I
I don't
think
know
that's
if you
I
can just
like the
talk about dopamine rushes and, and adrenaline rushes,
Oh yeah. So I think but though what you and I are both saying then is actually being looked at would not give me a dopamine rush, it would give me a fear response, which is quite different to a dopamine hit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
So
think the
yeah.
one good thing about the path that I took was I remember like when I was in like, so it was a marketing and then it was a leadership program. And one of the things we had to do in the leadership program was we had to do like Facebook lives. And I remember the very first one I did, and I had to do it. It was part of a group thing. Everybody in the group had to do it. I mean, I don't think they would have killed me if I didn't do it, but being, you
Hey,
know, wanting to do, you're paying the money to be there, so do the thing, right? But I remember like being on Facebook Live and like how I actually like literally felt, actually and literally felt like I was going in front of a firing squad. That's how scared I was. But then after I did it a few times and I didn't die doing it, it it helped me rewire. So like I can do this now and just, I can do lives, I can do all kinds of stuff, and it doesn't bug me at all. I don't feel the same way. There are certain times though that does still come up, like when I'm writing something from, I think may be controversial, that I have a real biased way of looking at it. I don't want to create a fight with anybody. So that's old for me, right? I don't want to create a battle with anybody, or I don't want to upset anybody, So it's not so much people please, it's like I just really don't want to fight.
It's a protection mechanism though, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
still, I'm gonna try and create safety by not creating any form of antagonism.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
And
yeah.
yeah, and right now and so, kind of what I've been working on for myself is like this creative authority thing has kind of come in. And it was, from one of my teachers that he asked us all in the group. He said it was more like, what's your personal authority? So everybody was kind of going in and saying like, my personal authority is, and I started thinking about like myself as a creative authority. So where do I speak? What gives me the right, or the, it, first of all, we don't need a right to speak. We and a right to think. We're each like individuals with a unique viewpoint in the world and a unique expression in the world, and that's what creates our wholeness, right? So it's that diverse unity that, I've heard other places too, but I was really like, I love that expression of a diverse unity. You can't have a diverse unity if we're all going to be saying the same thing. And that's it. So what gives me the right to create in my authority is, what I named is my open heart, the integrity of my open heart. So as long as I am in my open heart and speaking in my feeling the integrity of that, which is that strength of that, then I feel it becomes a lot easier for me to express myself, because I'm in that. So like, and I've been like really experimenting, I guess, with my writing around how to talk about this, and how to write about this, and how to express it in a way that encourages others to do the same, you know? And I feel like this conversation around nervous system dopamine and somatics and nervous system, blah blah blah, and kind of setting the record straight about what it is, instead of just using it as a buzzword, and therefore another excuse not to do something or to do something, is, I feel like it's very important, because as you said earlier, if you don't know what you're really talking about or what something really means, you can't really reimagine it, because you're missing a point.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you would as well. I would really welcome feedback and engagement from anyone who works in the somatic, who works under the title of somatics, or who works under the title of, I don't know if there's people who work under the title of dopamine.
I'm a dopamine therapist.
There was something, me and the kids went to this. I mean, there was this thing in London for ages that was called Dopamine Land, and it was epic. So you went through all these different rooms that were literally designed, but they were things like, there was a room where you lay on really soft beanbags, and they had like really soft Chinese lanterns coming from the ceiling, and there was a graffiti room where you were allowed to draw on the walls, and there was a ball pit, and there was a pillow fight room, and
that sounds like our vision for the village of Yes and.
Yeah, it was so good. It was, but you did come out feeling, but weirdly, you came out feeling kind of relaxed and empowered.
Yeah.
Which I suppose was like, oh yeah, cool. I'm in a good mixed state now. But yeah, I think
that's cool too. Yeah. So yeah, if you're listening to this and you're a therapist and you work in somatic processing, or
any of them,
any of those, yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Maybe have you on as a guest. We can chat further about it, because that's not something that either one of us is really well versed in. But
no, but I love to, any authentic healing, there's always going to be parallels, aren't there? There always is. And so it's like, okay, come teach us the language, because that's what we're talking about, is that often it's not a mismatch of energy. The energetics are as authentic as each other, but the languaging can sometimes be a place of disconnect rather than connection. And what would be really cool to reimagine is finding language as a connector rather than a separator.
Yeah. And that I think comes down to intention too. So like kind of going back to creative authority, if you're drawing your authority to create from a place of connection, that's really like that's a declaration of how you're going to use your expression to create connection, so there's so many ways that you could change the world just by empowering your creation, and how you express in the world.
Remember when I had remember the time I decided to understand quantum physics? And that at the bottom of quantum physics, basically the big revelation is that the only responsibility you have as part of this universe is to be as uniquely you as you can, because you are the universe expressing itself. And then I taught quantum physics via coloring in because like the point is that because of how we interact with each other and with anything. So I gave a bunch of kids in their early 20s a picture of the flower of life in one color and send them off to different areas, and we all colored it in, and obviously we all did something. We all had the same materials, and the only differential factor was us. So everyone had done something different. Like someone had made it symmetrical, someone had gone outside the lines, and we had this lineup of like, I don't know how many of us there were, 5 or 6 of these things. And they were all like, whoa, I didn't even think to do that. And then they were all like, can we do it again? And I was like, yeah. And then we all did it again. And everyone then recreated based on the influence of the other people. So not only did you show from the first round 1 showed how unique we all are and how vital we are. And then round 2 showed that what connection brings is further expansion and further creativity, because you learn when people are being themselves. And so that's what you get at the bottom of everything is be you. Yay.
Be you. Yeah. And that's enough, right? It's not, that's abundant, actually.
The whole thing of life is first you build, in Richard Raw's words would be the first half of life you build the container, and the second half you rip it down again. Find out. And it's necessary. There's there's that model that is oh man, I can't think of the words. Basically it's the like birth, death, rebirth model, but in a different word. Yeah. I was going to say like it's create, destroy, rebuild, but that's not the terminology used.
I like that one though.
Most things go through that cycle of, when you do a painting, right, there's always the disaster stage, and you just have to keep going, and then it becomes something you never even knew it was going to be. I've got one behind my screen right now that's been in a perpetual disaster stage, and it's just starting to. I just had to let go of what I thought it was going to look like, because I need to let it become what it wants to be, which is how I've been working lately anyway. But for some reason on that one, I've found it clunkier than on the other ones I've done recently. But it's getting there. I just have to let go of, I don't know what it's going to look like.
Yeah, exactly. So letting go of an outcome. Huh.
Where do we do that from?
Some art, it has an outcome, but it's not, I think too, kind of going into art, not that we're going to spend too much time there, but we're going to be wrapping up very soon, is that a lot of what we create problems with when we're creating is we're trying to recreate an image in our head. And I have to say, like, I have a lot of skill as an artist. I've been doing this for like a little over 30 years. And not once have I ever achieved exactly the image that was in my head, because once it starts coming into form, you're working in form, which is not in your imagination. It needs to have that time to brew in your imagination, where it's an inspiration that wants to come through and find its form. So it becomes an interaction with your materials, with life, with light, with shadow, with those limitations. That's the whole idea as souls. Is why we contracted to be here in these limited states. I mean, we're very unlimited. We know that world, but wouldn't it be fun to come here and let's impose all these limitations on ourselves and then see what we do, right? But we got all serious about it, and here we are.
I think it's that classic thing though, isn't it, of like the only way to know yourself is to create an edge of some sort. It's just, that's how the universe learns, that's how God works, that's how it all works, is there's got to be some form of reflection or the good old rule of three of like, there's me, you, and the space between us, or there's, you know, there always has to be some form of reflection. Otherwise, everything just is perfect, but it will never know itself.
So, wow. We started off with dopamine and nervous system regulation. We dove deep into that topic, and now we always come back to expanded. So, yeah, it's the reimagine part of things. We have to, you know, to reimagine too, you have to kind of really zoom out before you zoom back in. You can't reimagine from a very narrow reduction.
And the very nature of reimagining is that if we had this conversation on the same topics in another week or 3 years, it would be a completely different conversation because we'd be reimagining it again.
Yeah, exactly.
What's true is always true, and yet there's always more.
Yeah. So we'll just leave it right there, because that's kind of a, like, if you could say that again, that's a great place to kind of help people with their imaginations. If we revisited this topic in a week or a month, or
it would be a whole new thing. And that's what is true stays true, and there's always more. It never, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? Is that there's always more. There's always more to see, to learn, to know.
Which is not lack, it's abundance. So thank you so much for joining us for the Reimagine podcast. I feel funny saying a Reimagine podcast, but for Reimagine. And if there's ever any topics you guys want us to pick apart, if you're a somatic therapist, or you work in with the nervous system and you want to be on the show, hit us up and we'll have a chat and have you on, because this is, you know, we're going to keep going. The other thing we want to mention is May 2nd through 6th. Is that when we're doing it? We are co-leading an immersion into the art of healing, healing facilitation. I know it's very wordy, but as a facilitator, as a healer, you're really facilitating someone else's healing, and there's an art to it. So Claire and I are leading a retreat style immersion into the art of healing. We'll put the link in the show notes. If this is something you are interested in, it's going to be a lot of what we're talking about, how to work in the energy field, how to connect, really. We'll be guiding you through lots of different experiences, not to teach you, but so that you can learn from your own experience, which that's true learning, is through experience. And it's going to be held in beautiful Cornwall, England, which I've not been, but I hear it's pretty magical.
Old land.
Old land.
Old sacred places.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing some land ceremonies, some inside ceremonies, along with a lot of exercises to help you find connection.
Yeah, and just holding space for people working in the healing field themselves to be like, even if you don't feel you need anything from the sake of your craft, it's maybe you need something for the sake of yourself. And so I keep thinking of, like, as well as it being the essence of healing, it's also healing the healer, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, it has to be, right? Because that's the only way we can help others, if we've kind of gone through that ourselves, right? So if you're in a state of burnout and know you need to shift some things, this would be the place for you to do that.
It would, with an excellent retreat chef.
Yes. Yeah, I hear the food's awesome.
Great food.
Great food. If for nothing else, just come for the food.
Yeah, just come for the great.
Any last thoughts or words of wisdom?
No, I think I am done with wisdom.
Okay. And the next episode will be with a guest. We're talking to a few different people, but we'll see who we end up with. And if not, well, I guess you're just going to have to put up with the two of us again.
Yes. Cool.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Reimagine.
Bye. Bye.